This evening, Phase 2 of the Because We Care cash grant is set to begin tomorrow. One dead, one hospitalized, and another behind bars amid a brawl at Parika. The APP seeking legal guidance surrounding the Guyana Police Force's latest scandal. In the region, prosecutors expand probe of Peru's President Pedro Castillo, and internationally, Australia Prime Minister says Morrison's secret roles undermine democracy. Welcome to another broadcast of Channel 2's Headline News Update. I am Bibi Bacchus. Thank you for joining us. The Ministry of Education will be conducting the second phase of the distribution of the Because We Care cash grant. The distribution will take place on Thursday, August 18, 2022, across Guyana at identified distribution centers. This second phase will focus on parents who were unable to uplift the grant during the initial phase and those parents whose child's name did not appear on the list despite being properly registered at their respective schools. Parents and guardians who fall within any of the two categories are urged to make every effort to uplift the grant or authorize a trusted individual to do so. Parents or guardians must present a valid form of identification, such as their identification card, passport, or driver's license. Parents or guardians who do not possess a form of identification must be identified as the parent or guardian of the child by a community leader, teacher, or head teacher of the school. If someone is being authorized to uplift the grant, they must present a valid form of identification and a letter of authorization. This exercise is necessary to allow parents who could not have made it on the initial date to uplift the grant and to ensure that the children whose names were missing from their school's list are not disenfranchised. One man was killed in a brawl at Parika, another was hospitalized, and another was arrested. Esther Sobers has more details.
One teenager was fatally stabbed and another is nursing stab wounds after a brawl in Parika Facade, East Bank Essequibo on Monday, August 15, 2022. The dead man has been identified as 18-year-old Donald Gibson of Lot 7 Hyde Park, Parika, East Bank Essequibo. His friend, 19-year-old Wazim Mohammed of Lot 1818 Parika East Bank Essequibo is hospitalized. Inquiries disclosed that around 5:30 p.m., Gibson and 24-year-old male suspect were at a liquor restaurant at Parika Facade when Gibson accused the suspect of hitting his friend sometime in the past. An argument ensued and Gibson allegedly assaulted the suspect physically before leaving the bar. Gibson approached the suspect after he left the bar and the two argued once more before getting into a fight. The suspect was carrying a knife and dealt Gibson a stab under his left arm. Mohammed tried to break up the altercation and the three males got into another altercation. The suspect stabbed Mohammed in his back and buttocks before the fight was quelled by public-spirited persons. The suspect subsequently allegedly threw a knife into the nearby trench. Gibson was taken to the Lenora Cottage Hospital where he succumbed while receiving medical care. Mohammed was treated at the said hospital and is presently a patient. The suspect was arrested and placed into custody. Police in Region Division 3 continues to investigate. For Channel 2 Headline News, Esther Sobers.
Thanks, Esther. The Director of Public Prosecutions is currently seeking legal guidance from the Office of the Professional Responsibility about the devastating allegations made by Police Sergeant Dion Bascom. OPR has submitted the results of their inquiry along with their recommendations. In a statement issued on Tuesday night, Police Commissioner Nigel Hicken stated that the Police Sergeant Dion Bascom over the recent days made a number of public, wholly unsubstantiated allegations alleging police misconduct in the ongoing investigation of the murder of Ricardo Fagundes. Sergeant Bascom has refused to submit himself to any investigations by the police of his public allegations, nor provide any evidence supporting the public allegations. It is not without significance that Sergeant Bascom found himself personally compromised during an exercise carried out by the Customs Anti-Narcotics Unit, and that his public statement immediately followed this matter. Hicken went on to say that it is unfortunate that Sergeant Bascom's unfounded allegations have publicly involved senior members of the police force and other persons. Sergeant Bascom's public statements made while serving as an active member of the Guyana Police Force are in breach of the Code of Conduct of the Police Force. As a result of the allegations, Hicken ordered an immediate investigation of the matter by the Office of Professional Responsibility. The ORP has submitted the findings of their investigation along with their recommendations. Those findings are now before the Director of Public Prosecutions for legal advice. Bascom is currently at home on sick leave at his request. Stick around after the break. Guyana Fire Service received 3 new water bowsers and shelters and survivor advocacy program to be rolled out across the country.
Good girl forget things.
What's the problem, Granny?
I want money for borrow for doing surgery. I was dancing and I fall and fracture my hip.
If you need some quick money, you should check Lender's Jewelry and Pawn Shop.
Lender's Jewelry and Pawn Shop, Lot 238 South Road Border, Georgetown. Get jewelry made to order in just 72 hours. We also accept vehicles. Lender's, best rates, longest payback period.
Boys, I get through. Plus, I could dance again.
Lender's Jewelry and Pawn Shop.
Furnishing your home or office has never been easier. Here at Kissoon's, our inventory of locally made and imported furniture, offered at amazing prices, will leave you wanting more. From vinyl, floor rugs and carpets, bedroom, dining and living room sets, mattresses, pillows, office desk, chairs and filing cabinets, outdoor benches and tables. We have a piece of furniture for every room imaginable in your home or office. Check out our flagship store at Industrial Site Rijnveld or one of our branches in New Amsterdam, Port Morant, Riverton and Camp Street. Kissoon's Furniture, furnishing homes for over 50 years.
Sooner or later you will have another power failure. Are you prepared for the next blackout? Some essential equipment such as security cameras, lights, internet, gate motors, and water pumps may stop working. How can you prevent the next blackout? InverterTech has an affordable solution for you. A strong UPS system which uses the latest inverter and solar battery technology to prevent blackout. We smartly calculate your average power demand so you don't spend more than you need to. Call 223-2233 for more information.
When you need money and you gotta get it fast, Creative Jewelry and Pawn Shop is the place for that confidential transaction in a quiet and secure location. You'll get the highest value per pennyweight for your gold and also enjoy the lowest interest rates and longest payback period too. Yes, for that instant transaction to solve a pressing financial problem. That Creative Jewelry and Pawn Shop, 46 Boyle Place, that's between the Ministry of Housing on Brick Dam and White Castle Fish Shop. Be your first and only choice. Creative Jewelry and Pawn Shop, safe and sound, solid and secure, always there for you. Telephone 231-7878 and 223-8955.
Welcome back. The Ministry of Human Services and Social Security's Survivors Advocate Program and shelters are being expanded across the country to improve the response to domestic violence cases. Minister of Human Services and Social Security Dr. Vinay Prasad made the announcement on Monday as her ministry is working assiduously to mitigate gender-based violence against women and girls countrywide. The Survivors Advocate Program is an essential one implemented to grapple with this growing issue. Minister Prasad said many victims have non-existent support systems, poor kinships, and financial dependency, causing them to stay in life-threatening relationships. To ensure victims who come forward are safe, the ministry train and employ survivor advocates to provide victims with the support and help needed to overcome their experiences. Survivor advocates are accessible to persons through 914 Domestic Violence Hotline and have the responsibility of informing victims of their rights and the services available to them. As part of the program, victims will be offered survivors' kit to get them back on their feet. The kits contain essential items for persons who may be forced to evacuate their homes because of an abusive relationship. Additionally, the minister also highlighted the need for more shelters for vulnerable persons. Currently, the ministry has several shelters across the country, some of which are state-owned and partnerships. Recently, the ministry completed major rehabilitative work at its night shelter at East Pennington's Georgetown to accommodate even more persons. The government of Guyana donated 3 new water bowsers to the Guyana Fire Service worth more than $40 million. What exactly is a bowser? Esther Sobers responds to this question and explains how it will benefit the fire service.
Guyana Fire Service would now be more equipped to handle fire situations with the acquisition of 3 new water browsers valued at $46.2 million. A water browser is a trail fitted with a tank that carries water. The equipment was handed over by the Minister of Home Affairs, Morrison, on Tuesday, August 17, 2022. The water browser each has a capacity of 1,800 gallons and will be used to support the water tenders in the event of a fire. Minister Ben noted that there had been a recent increase in malicious setting of fires. In this regard, the government is making the required preparations to lessen and resolve these problems in and around Georgetown. Some of these actions include building additional housing areas, replacing and installing city hydrants, and purchasing more equipment to help with firefighting and fire prevention. Meanwhile, Chief Firefighter Acting Gregory Wickham said he is pleased with the donation and expressed gratitude to the government and the Ministry of Home Affairs. He said the appliances would assist in having water readily available in the event of a fire and noted that they would be placed at Parika, Eccles, and Georgetown. For Channel 2 Headline News, Esther Sobers.
Thanks, Esther. Former Police Sergeant Damian McLennan, one of the 2 policemen accused of tampering with the investigation into the shooting death of Quinton Bacchus, was released on bail today. McLennan was represented by Bernardi Silver, who argued that the accused is not a flight risk and does not pose a risk of tampering with witnesses since the investigation into the murder is complete. The Silver further stated that if McLennan is not granted bail, he will needlessly be subjected to inhumane and unsanitary conditions as well as several health risks while incarcerated. Chief Justice Acting Roxanne George granted McLennan's request for bail in the sum of $250,000. Don't go away after the break. Violence in Mexico. President under fire for security strategy. And Australia Prime Minister says Morrison's secret rules undermine democracy.
When you need money and you gotta get it fast, Creative Jewelry and Pawn Shop is the place for that confidential transaction in a quiet and secure location. You'll get the highest value per pennyweight for your gold and also enjoy the lowest interest rates and longest payback period too. Yes, for that instant transaction to solve a pressing financial problem. That Creative Jewelry and Pawn Shop, 46 Boyle Place, that's between the Ministry of Housing on Brick Dam and White Castle Fish Shop. Be your first and only choice. Creative Jewelry and Pawn Shop, safe and sound, solid and secure, always there for you. Telephone 231-7878 and 223-8955.
Furnishing your home or office has never been easier. Here at Kissoon's, our inventory of locally made and imported furniture, offered at amazing prices, will leave you wanting more. From vinyl, floor rugs and carpets, bedroom, dining and living room sets, mattresses, pillows, office desk, chairs and filing cabinets, outdoor benches and tables. We have a piece of furniture for every room imaginable in your home or office. Check out our flagship store at Industrial Site Rijnveld or one of our branches in New Amsterdam, Port Morant, Riverton and Camp Street. Kissoon's Furniture, furnishing homes for over 50 years.
Sooner or later you will have another power failure. Are you prepared for the next blackout? Some essential equipment such as security cameras, lights, internet, gate motors, and water pumps may stop working. How can you prevent the next blackout? InverterTech has an affordable solution for you. A strong UPS system which uses the latest inverter and solar battery technology to prevent blackout. We smartly calculate your average power demand so you don't spend more than you need to. Call 223-2233 for more information.
Good girl forget things.
What's the problem, Granny? I want money for borrow for those surgery. I was dancing and I fall and fracture my hip.
If you need some quick money, you should check Lender's Jewelry and Pawn Shop.
Lender's Jewelry and Pawn Shop, Lot 238 South Road Border, Georgetown. Get jewelry made to order in just 72 hours. We also accept vehicles. Lenders, best rates, longest payback period.
Boys, I get through. Plus, I could dance again. Lender's Jewelry and Pawn Shop.
Welcome back. Now we'll look at what's happening in the region and around the world. Prosecutors in Peru are expanding their corruption investigation against President Pedro Castillo. They are looking at his alleged involvement in corruption, obstruction of justice, and receiving bribes, but Castillo says it is political persecution and racism. Al Jazeera's Mariana Sanchez reports.
With just 1 year in office, President Pedro Castillo is now facing 6 criminal inquiries, and the federal investigations are getting closer and closer to home. A sister-in-law suspected of awarding government contracts to friends turned herself in. A nephew suspect of receiving bribes is a fugitive. And one of Castillo's top allies, a former transport minister in charge of the government's largest budget, is nowhere to be found. Castillo says the media is trying to portray his family as corrupt. His defense lawyer has requested the judiciary stop the press from publishing any information regarding the president's case. Castillo says he's a victim of racism.
They are against this government because I come from the countryside. It's totally racist. I do not speak like them or sit at their opulent tables because I walk with the people.
70% of Peruvians now think he's guilty. Frustrated that nearly all former presidents are involved in corruption, Peruvians marched in support of the public prosecutor leading the probes. Castillo's allies say the investigations are politically motivated.
I firmly reject the claims and insinuations that the public prosecutor's office is part of an alleged political plan.
An opinion poll says 24% of Peruvians think he's innocent and continue to support the 52-year-old former rural teacher and farmer. Castillo says he's cooperating with prosecutors in each investigation, but every time he goes to testify before them, he asserts his right to remain silent and says not another word.
Ha tomado una decisión que es absolutamente
He has taken the absurd decision of not making his judicial situation clear. A politician cannot simply remain silent before a prosecutor. A politician must be accountable, transparent, and Castillo is the least transparent leader in our history.
Lo que le toca a un político es aclarar.
Castillo has survived 2 impeachment attempts, but now former allies are testifying against him. In the face of so many investigations, unprecedented for a sitting president, his days in office may be numbered. Mariana Sanchez, Al Jazeera, Lima, Peru.
Mexico's president is facing criticism after a wave of character-related violence last week. Attacks by criminal groups left at least 11 persons dead, vehicles on fire, and dozens of businesses burned across 4 states. Al Jazeera's Manuel Ricardo reports.
Violence appears to be on the rise in Mexico. Attacks against businesses in states like Jalisco and Guanajuato. A rampage that left at least 9 dead in Ciudad Juárez. And a wave of violence in the city of Tijuana, all in the span of a week, has left many wondering what exactly is going on.
We know so far is that what we have is a series of unrelated events that have been very close to each other within a single week. Each one of those has a different logic. Each one of those has a different trigger.
The attacks have spurred the Mexican government to deploy National Guard troops to states like Baja California. Mexico's president, Andrés Manuel López Obrador, acknowledged the violence, but says it has been blown out of proportion by his political opponents.
Everyone relax. There is governability. There is stability. At the same time, there is an interest from our adversaries, the Conservatives, to magnify things and carry out sensationalist journalism.
Violence and vandalism from criminal militias in Mexico are not a new phenomenon, because, security analysts say, there are rarely any consequences.
Impunity is rampant. Criminal investigations are few and far in between, and they are and you don't have strong investigative capabilities that can increase the likelihood that anyone involved in this type of events will be punished.
Mexico's government has not announced any new plans to change the country's security strategy. The policy seems instead to be to intensify the existing one, with increased military-style policing in regions where cartels operate. While experts in Mexico say these latest instances of cartel-related violence don't appear to be connected, the picture that's emerging is of a country where, despite more boots on the ground, security forces are still losing ground to criminal organizations. Manuel Rapalo, Al Jazeera, Mexico City.
And finally, Australia's former Prime Minister Scott Morrison is fighting a move to make him resign from Parliament after news of his assumption of additional ministerial roles during the COVID-19 pandemic emerged. Al Jazeera's Sarah Clark reports.
His unpopularity dominated the Australian election campaign and cost the Liberal National Party the election. Less than 3 months after Scott Morrison resigned as party leader, he's now under pressure to resign from Parliament after he confirmed that he secretly appointed himself to 5 additional ministerial roles during the pandemic.
I believed it was necessary to have authority to have what were effectively emergency powers to exercise in extreme situations that would be unforeseen, that would enable me to act in the national interest. And that is what I did in a crisis.
Morrison swore himself in as a joint health minister, finance, resources, home affairs, as well as treasurer between 2020 and 2021. He didn't reveal these additional portfolios to the public, Parliament, nor to most of his colleagues. That's raised questions with the current government, which is seeking advice from the country's Solicitor General.
The Australian people went to an election not knowing that any of this had occurred, not knowing that there was a shadow government operating in darkness without transparency, a clear misleading of the Parliament whereby parliamentarians and ministers are held to account for areas in which they have responsibility.
Morrison says his actions didn't impact anyone, but it gave the former Prime Minister additional powers, which he used to overrule the Resources Minister on an unpopular gas drilling permit before the election. Legal analysts say the Governor-General's role overseeing the appointments and the lack of transparency involved warrant an investigation.
So this is fundamentally inconsistent with the basic conventions of our Westminster system. The government, the ministers, are accountable to Parliament, and misleading Parliament as to who exercises ministerial power is completely at odds with those conventions. So this is extremely unorthodox. It is a breach of constitutional convention.
The former Prime Minister may have apologised to his colleagues, but that hasn't quelled calls from within his party for him to resign from Parliament. That's a step so far that Scott Morrison is refusing to take. Sarah Clark, Al Jazeera, Brisbane, Australia.
And that is it for today's regional and international news. Here now to your 30 weather forecast. is all for this edition of Channel 2's Headline News Update. Tune in on Thursday at 7 p.m. for another episode. Be sure to subscribe, like, and follow us on Facebook and YouTube. Until then, please take care of yourself and each other.